Some more of the scene, Charlie. Well,
Ready? Hit it.
And now, here he is, a man of God, living in a world of Disney.
Ouch, Charlie!
Charlie Simons.
Charlie bit me.
Always talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: religion and politics. Hello, my friend. I am Charlie Simons, your host and MC here for your dining and dancing pleasure. And welcome to the Big Old Bad Old Broadcast. This is show number 268,473. I'm just kidding. I just made that number up. I have not even been keeping count of how many I've done, but 3 years now. 3 years. Didn't think I'd still be going this long, frankly. It's been a tremendous blessing. After a lifetime of being in the media, radio and television, working for big networks like ABC and CBS and, of course, Clear Channel, which at one time was the largest owning radio station company in the world, or radio station owning company. During COVID, I was with the Salem Media Group, and they had all their advertisers stop advertising with them all across especially in California, because businesses weren't allowed to stay open. And they did not have the big contracts, at least on their contemporary Christian music station that I was on. They didn't have the big advertisers. There was no Coca-Cola. There was no brought to you by Pfizer and that kind of stuff. It was mostly local businesses that were advertising on the station, and churches, and it was doing okay. But when they couldn't open their doors anymore because of the shutdowns and the forced closures of businesses by Governor Hairdo, it ruined them, and it ruined the businesses. They weren't going to keep paying to advertise their business on the radio that when they were not even able to open up their doors to stay in business. Didn't make any sense. They couldn't do it. It would ruin them. And many of them, it did. They've not returned. They lost everything. Family-owned and operated businesses. May have been in the family for a generation or two. Just destroyed. How did Jesus put it? Love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. I harbor a lot of resentment towards my own governor, who I affectionately call Governor Hairdo, Gavin Newsom, because he did tyrannical, horrific things. And I don't even think he's smart enough to do it. I really think that somebody higher up, like Joe Biden, has been put, not that Joe, I'm saying, like Joe Biden, there was somebody higher up telling him what to do and what to say. I really think Governor Hairdo is the same situation. I've never thought that he was all that particularly intelligent. Hey, everybody. So I'm talking with the governor in Hawaii, and we're going to turn this into a smart city. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. And the problem is, in my state of California, there's a lot of really dumb people who are voting, and a lot of really smart people and good people not voting. It has created this catastrophe of a government that we have running what they keep claiming is the sixth largest economy in the world. I don't know if it is so much anymore. But it's a very powerful state. And as California goes, so goes the rest of the nation. When, not if, when the state collapses financially, what do you think it's going to do to the rest of the country? If the rest of the country goes down with it, what's it going to do to the rest of the world? How do other states, even like Texas and Florida and so on, how do they isolate themselves from what California is creating? And it's a concerted effort. I'm quite convinced. This is all New World Order stuff. Take down California, you can take down the United States of America. This is communist takeover crap. And Gavin Newsom and all those people with him, Nancy Pelosi, Scott Wiener, what a filthy wiener he is. All these different people holding powerful, Adam Schiff, powerful positions in government. have been put there by somebody. And I think it's they've been put there by people like this. Watch this. These are our fellow neighbors. These are our fellow Americans. Roll it.
I'm going to try to explain something to Republicans. This is why people like me are so upset with Doge, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump ripping apart three-letter agencies. It's because that power very explicitly comes from Congress. Congress needs to write a bill and sign it, and the president needs to sign it into law to do something like dismantle the Department of Education. And as the executive branch goes on this tirade with some unelected bureaucrat just ripping apart federal funding where they feel like it, not only is it illegal because Elon Musk is just accessing classified information and doesn't have the authority to do that with a bunch of random 18 to 24-year-olds who have never served in government, it's also thrusting us deep into constitutional crisis, because as they just go on this conquest, federal judges are saying, hey, you can't do that, you need to stop, and they just keep doing it anyways.
That all sounds well and good until you realize that what Elon has done with Doge has actually happened many times before, and it was often Democrat presidents who were doing it. So Woodrow Wilson had the Bureau of Efficiency. That was not authorized by Congress. That was just an executive agency, a new executive initiative, much like Doge, had actually one of the same words in the name. You had FDR with the Brownlow Commission to reorganize the government. You had Truman with the Hoover Commission to reorganize the executive branch. You had Ronald Reagan with the Grace Commission, did much the same thing, also reorganizing the executive branch. You had Al Gore. When Al Gore was vice president, not even the president, he eliminated over 250,000 federal jobs and consolidated 800 departments. Didn't have Congress backing him up on everything. And so I agree, there's congressional oversight that's required and some congressional participation to totally abolish agencies. But what Trump and Elon are doing right now is not only good and popular and perfectly legal, it also has precedent in American history going back.
You think that kid learned something? That kid actually saw that video and went, oh, I didn't know that. Or do you think it's just like, no. Yeah, I think it's probably the latter. Daniel Mercury has been fighting against this kind of ignorance for how long now, my friend? Hello, welcome to Do Not Talk.
Thank you again, Charlie, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And I always tell everybody too, that Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and He's the foundation and all and everything that I do and everything that I believe in. You know, it's really I believe that if we continue to remove God out of our lives, well, that void has to be filled, and it's got to be filled with something, and it's never anything good. It's always filled with vile ignorance, people who just want to twist and turn everything upside down. You know, there's an old saying, I think it's in Ephesians, that, you know, those who hide behind the dark and hide behind the corners, they think that nobody sees them and nobody knows who they are because they love to turn everything upside down. And that's exactly what we're witnessing right now. But with the Trump administration, you know, things are starting to turn right side up. And I've been at this now for a little over, as your question asked me, was about 5 years at this current time. And there's a lot of ignorance out there.
What did you do before? What was the catalyst when you went, uh-oh, I got to do something?
Believe it or not, it was fires, which happened back in 2019. I moved to Ventura County, and the Woolsey fire had just taken place, and it kicked up a lot of the old Santa Susana laboratory that a lot of people don't know was kind of California's, America's Chernobyl, that melted down. There was 10 reactors. One of them they almost couldn't stop it, and they used water to flush it out as much as they could. Everybody who put a stop to it, of course, they all perished. They unfortunately passed away from the radiation and the the leak. Well, that material is still there. The California government hasn't really cleaned it up, and so the area that I live in, the highest rating of have leukemia. My dog. And at the time, we didn't really know, but when that Woolsey fire happened, it burned up the rest of the Santa Susana laboratory. And I remember my house was just covered in ash. The pool turned black. It took us a good almost month to finally clean everything up. And I believe that was what really affected my daughter. A couple of years later, she was diagnosed with leukemia. And at that time, the fires were still off and on. and my local representative was nowhere to be found. And my congressional representative was already, without telling people, was already making plans to step aside and make her note and give her notification that she was going to be stepping down as our congressional representative, which was Katie Hill at the time.
Why?
A lot of people were moving. They were given notice to evacuate. So I started to evacuate, and my neighbors on the left and the right were packed. Neighbors across the street asking, and I said, "Well, didn't you get the notification?" They said, "No." So we went to the next door neighbor, and we just went all the way to the block, and we did that. Nobody on the other side was notified. Yet we were the same distance away from the fire. So
No way.
What did we miss? And that's when I knew something's not right. So I realized, well, at that time we didn't have any real representation. So I just decided to start knocking on doors. And that's when I was to the corruption firsthand, because I live in what's called I guess you can consider it purple district. And a purple, people who are, doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican or independent, vote the way of the candidate or the nature of the character of the candidate and their constitutional understanding. So it's a very, very odd district, because again, it's on the border of Los Angeles and Ventura County, and a lot of the lines have been gerrymandered. So what happens in this town tends to sway both counties. And so it's a very, as I said before, a purple district. And that's when I started realizing I was rattling the wrong and the right cages and getting some of the attention as to the things that I was saying. But the things that I was saying then is a lot of what President Trump is saying today. And I'm getting tons of phone calls where people are saying, I remember you when you ran for Congress. I remember you during the recall, and you were talking about investigation. You were talking about removing and violating their oath, putting people in prison that have egregiously passed laws that have subverted the Constitution and the right and the will. Is that still your stance? And yes, it is 100%.
Good. I'm so glad. The first time I ever heard you speak, I was like, oh my goodness, who is this guy? I got to get him on. Does he even stand a chance ever holding office in the state of California with the massive ignorance that people are displaying all up and down my once golden state? I don't know if you do. You talk about God too much. You talk about your faith in Christ Jesus. And that seems to scare people on the left, even those who consider themselves middle of the road. And as I've experienced now as a delegate with the California State Republican Party, there's a whole lot of conservatives who have nothing to do with God or religion or Christianity. They're just not. And if they aren't neutral to it, they're maybe leaning even on the hostile side. Yeah, that has no place in politics. The hell it doesn't. Absolutely it does. And stop saying that. Or go to the left. Get out of my party. That's where I am now. I've had it. And I'm going to the convention next month, Daniel. I don't know if you're going to be there, but I'm going.
I've had people ask me if I'm going to go. And right now my team is working on, is this going to be fruitful for my campaign? There are some people that have recommended me to go. Some people have said that they'll give me 5-10 minutes on that stage. So we're working on it right now. So you might see me there.
I'll tell you what, the California Republican Assemblies folks, I'd imagine, would love to have you get up there and say something to some of their meetings. But as on the big stage, no, hell no. You won't be afforded that voice at all. You won't be given that.
That's that's where we're at right now. What
I've experienced with the party is they already pick out their candidates. The ones who have money, the ones who have name recognition, that's all they seem to care about.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that.
They're not interested in grassroots, are they?
No, in fact, I was just given notification that they said that GOP isn't going to pay to any that cannot raise over $1 million. Interested in constitutional understanding. They're not interested in true conservatism, which is based off of biblical values. They're not actually interested in, the person's nature, the character of the candidates, and their consistency as who they are as a person. Have they flip-flopped? Do they have any major red flags? Where is it that we can find some issues that they have lied about? They're not interested in that. They're only interested first and foremost into how much money the candidate can raise. And the crazy thing about that is that has nothing to do with good governance. It has nothing to do with the right or the will of the people. It has nothing to do with, what we're going to do to clean house, because that is my stance. In order for us to do anything right in this state, we have to do exactly with what is going on, and that is investigation, which is what DOJ is doing, right? Investigating waste, environmental misconduct behind doors. Nobody wants that. And the GOP, unfortunately, there are a lot of great people in the flip trying to make the change. But
did you say DOP?
The GOP.
Yeah. Oh, GOP. My apologies. Your Wi-Fi's breaking up and kind of getting a little glitchy, but we'll continue on because
I apologize for that. And as we took over, right, to let your audience know, since the fires, my area has still been heavily affected with internet, and companies are still working on the wires. So I apologize to your audience for that. But at the end of the day, it's up to me as the candidate to go around, and I have been focusing on a lot of areas of our state that people aren't paying attention to, focusing on votes that did not come in. We forget this state has 40 million people. 10 million can't vote because they're either underage or they're illegals. Then that leaves 30 million.
You're telling me you actually believe that illegals are not voting? Come on, Daniel.
Point that is there's 30 million people who are voting. Out of historically, only 13 million have ever come out for the gubernatorial election cycle. Where are the other 17 million?
Especially since a third of the population claims to be Christian, yet only about 40% of them are even registered, and they don't even show up for primaries and midterms. It's pathetic and no excuse for it. And I'm tired of beating that drum. I don't know how we win without them, because I do know if Christians alone stepped up and took their civic responsibility seriously, that in a nation that was blessed by God, started under Judeo-biblical principles, obviously founded on those, but you can't even be bothered to vote.
And here's the interesting thing to what you just said too. A lot of these people don't realize, and this has been part of anybody can go onto my website. This has been part of my strategy in trying to educate, not just let people know about my candidacy. That's one part of it. The other part is to educate them. And one of the things that I find is that a lot of people only wait for the general election, not realizing in California, we have a jungle primary. We have a jungle primary. That means we could focus on 2 candidates. You know that if we overwhelm that, because historically there's only about 6 to 7 million people that come out and vote for the primary. Where's the other half of the 13 million, not to mention that don't even come out and vote at all ever? That means that we can overwhelm the system in the sense that we could put in 2 conservatives on the top 2 ticket for governor or for any other position. Why aren't we doing that? That's a whole other strategy that we do not focus on, that I've been preaching about and trying to implement to everybody on how they can get with their local municipalities, their county clerk, ensuring that they're talking to other patriot groups so they don't have to just focus on 1, but 2 candidates, and to get out the vote. And we're not doing this. This is the kind of strategy that I've been trying to wake up people on a lot of levels, not just holding our representatives' feet to the fire, and how we can do that ourselves when all 3 branches of the government are, as you and I know, are hugely corrupt. So we can't stop, but we have to go beyond, just sitting there hoping that someone's going to do it for us. And that requires our GOP knowing the Constitution, and they don't want to know it.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Our executive board is horrible, and I'm going rhino hunting at the convention next month. I really am. I'm done. Like Dan Bongino says, cutesy time is over.
Yes.
No, I got a state to save and I got a nation to save. We've made some great inroads and some great strides on a national level. But if California goes down, it's going to bring down the rest of the nation. And I've been saying for a long time now that Governor Hairdo and Jerry Brown before him and other pieces of crap like them know that California is so powerful financially that they will be bailed out again and again and again by the big daddy federal government, because if the state of California financially collapses, it will bring down the rest of the nation with it. It just will. It's too powerful financially. So they know they can give away all these freebies and free health care for illegals and all these different stupid little ass things that they do, because they will be bailed out. As Joe Biden promised on the phone during the fires when he finally answered Governor Hairdo's phone call. Oh, yeah, whatever, cleanup, everything, we'll cover it.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that? First of all, why is that your job? Would you do that if that was a Republican governor you were talking to? Most certainly not. The cronyism and the favors, and California is never held responsible for their dumbass actions. Daniel.
No, it's and that's the part why I have been telling people it's obvious that these people are criminal. It's obvious that these individuals are, laundering money. Again, I wrote about this in my book, Lucifer Zenith, and I talk about the bullet train to nowhere. When you look at how much money the bond was just to try to initiate the first few phases of it, it never happened. It makes you ask the question, where did that money go? Number two,
Yep.
then as they were continuing on with the build, they took the road tax and the gas tax and they moved it over to this bullet train to nowhere. Where did that money go? Then they decide to lower it and shorten the mileage and try to do their proof of concept between Merced and Bakersfield, which are not two bustling areas. I wrote about it in my book in the sense that, the Los Angeles and San Francisco to try to build that rail, makes some sense because, they're two major metropolitan areas. They're heavily populated areas with large major attractions to tourism and so on, and movie making. A lot of people, there's a lot of rich history there, and that makes sense. But to Bakersfield and Merced, that are two lower areas that nobody has any interest in going to. They're growing areas, but again, you're asking now for more money than the first initial stance of, I think it was 9 billion. Now it was 20 billion. Now they want to increase it to even higher, which is over $100 billion. But we're already in a negative $70 billion surplus when we had a plus. We were in the positives. Now we're in the negatives. Where are they going to get all this money and where is it going? And now he wants to reintroduce his magical homeless plan that he had already stipulated back when he was mayor of San Francisco. That did happen. And it's a Ponzi scheme. And a lot of people don't realize that cities can claim a crisis. Cities can utilize the homeless to request more federal funding. And if they can do that, then they will get more money. But there's no fiscal oversight committee that's executed by the public. So we can verify all of our tax dollars. So then it begs the question, why is the homeless increasing? It's because there's profit to be made, a large profit. So they don't want to standardize it in the state constitution. In my administration, it's going to be standardized. And when you do that, well, now there's a pattern on that you have to follow on how we're going to handle the homeless, how much money can be allocated through tax dollars, and what nonprofit organizations who already have open books can handle the mental instability, the people who are down on their luck, families and veterans. And when you do that, you standardize homeless getting off the street, but you have to close the borders too, because you're perpetuating the homelessness when these people also can't find a job.
The Communist Chinese Party, I believe, has infiltrated California in massive ways. We saw it in San Francisco when Xi, their dictator, He's not a president. He's made it to where he can serve for the rest of his life if he wants, kind of like Zelensky in Ukraine. She comes here. He doesn't meet with Biden. He doesn't go to D.C. and then come out and visit a different place. He flies to California, and Governor Hairdo is his host. That was odd and suspicious.
Well, not to mention, he removed the flag. When China came in here, we don't, in the military, when a lot of people don't know, so I was in the Navy, when we would go into port, every other country would lower their flag in respect to our flag. Ours would be raised above theirs. We never remove our state flag, and we never remove our United States flag for an incoming national country, president, anybody like that. We might host them next to each other, but we don't ever remove them. And that's exactly what Gavin Newsom did. And it was easy for him to remove all the homelessness and clear up the streets. And of course, they did that for the Super Bowl. And it sort of tells you where their mindset is at and who they actually serve, which is not their constituents. No. There's a lot of red flags going on behind the scenes when you start digging into how this
and
really
that's
works
the thing.
And how they
there was
money.
No explanation as to why she was here and why we went, because that had to cost us money to do a lot. And we never understood why. What was this all about? Why was he here? Why is a dignitary from a major nuclear power coming here and hanging out with our governor in California?
I'll tell you one of the reasons. This was just during when I was doing my research. I was, of course, going up and down campaigning during the recall and during the 22 Prime. They write about this in my book. Is a lot of people don't know that some of the fires that happened between 19 and 20 and 21, 22, a lot of that land was bought up. And when I started digging into who bought the land was bought out by front companies. The front companies, when you dig deeper, are not actually companies that are here, that are somebody who was born here in California or an adjacent state. They're actually front companies that are owned from families that are in China, India, and even Russia. And when you start pressing some of the county clerks to dig up some of the documentation as to who owns the property now, I started getting people hanging up on me. They were, getting timid. I had to be very careful with my words just to get information. And some of these homes have been owned for, 2-3 generation family homes and land and property. Now they were told that they cannot build on it because, well, the land is too unstable, yet it was sold. And so I started, the banks were a little more forthright than some of the county clerks and records. Oh, yeah. And unfortunately, this is what's happening. So he's probably coming in, ensuring that the property that was bought out, they're basically buying us out from underneath. So here's the other thing that some people don't realize. If you get a ticket and you're driving down, say, some sort of commercial property area where there are shopping centers, and you get a ticket on one side of the land, you're paying double. Why are you paying double? And this was actually ruled in New York. It happened in New York, and it was made, public, and they try to silence it. Is that it's quasi international law, and you can't utilize quasi because it'll go against the Constitution. And that quasi law basically says because part of the property is owned by those who are international business moguls and so on, they are paying not only the state for making an illegal U-turn or doing something that's a street violation, they're also paying a fee into that international court to those families and companies that own that property. So they don't fall under our Constitution, but we allow for that because, well, we sold the property to them. So somehow they're getting some kind of, what do you call it? What is it when individuals that come here and they get immunity? Diplomatic immunity. So some of these companies are sort of falling into that quasi judicial agreement that's legal. Well, that's going on in California as well. So it takes a lot of research to dig this up, but this is why some of these people from other countries, these presidents, these huge business moguls that have a front company, they are buying out the property from underneath us. And a lot of these lands are, already pre-sold. So once they're pre-sold, right, and then the burning happens, then they fall under that property, falls under a dubious jurisdiction. So it augments and their ability to do whatever they want, and then it forces our representatives to give us lip service while they serve and hand these puppet masters. This is really what's going on, but it took a lot of digging and research and on my end, and a lot of doors slammed on my face. I got threats, attorneys calling me, telling me to back off.
Really?
It goes really deep. I'm not just out there running for governor. This is why I put a lot of this information in my book. People understood and understand. I'm giving these too. This is not about the money. So anybody in your audience, if they want a free copy, I'll send it to them. I order boxes upon boxes every time.
Hold it up so we can see the cover.
So this is the cover. You can get it on Amazon. But if you can't afford it, I'm more than happy to give you.
What's it called?
This is called Lucifer Zenith, Corrupting Nature's God Through Government Deception.
Lucifer Zenith.
Zenith.
Lucifer Zenith. Zenith. Okay. Daniel Mercury. Mercuri, not Y.
Correct. This is why he arrived here. And now I can see your wheels spinning. It's starting to make a little more sense, isn't it?
Yes, brother. And especially down in your area, apparently you were affected by the fires. I hope you weren't threatened at any point, but starting in Palisades and all that.
I mean, we were affected.
People had their fire insurance canceled like a week, 2 weeks before the actual big fire by the hundreds. And they lost everything because they didn't have the replacement insurance. Everybody assumes that the state makes a lot of money off the property taxes on those properties, but no, with Prop 13, many of them were grandfathered in, and they're not making all that much, and they don't seem to even care anymore about celebrity status. You didn't want to tick off the celebs because they're all voting for you and pulling for you, and they're all on your side.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, when you partner up with any kind of a communist entity, they couldn't care less. In fact, the last thing they want are people who have power and influence above and over the government, which means celebrities have to go.
Yes.
That's the way the communists do things. That's how they run things. And this whole thing smacks of that so much. And then when I keep hearing about how the fire started, how entire neighborhoods seem to erupt all at the same time, instead of the wind blowing it across like would naturally occur with any kind of brush or wildfire, suddenly the entire neighborhoods seem to be going up all at the same time. Then we hear about the smart meters and the directed energy weapons and all this kind of stuff, and the blue vehicles, not burning, and that's and I've seen the photographic evidence, and I also serve in I can't talk about it because they'll kick me out because of my political stance, but I serve in such a way with the state of California that a lot of times I'm doing emergency response stuff, and I have friends who were actually sitting down there. They came back with horror stories, Daniel. And I'm trying to talk them into going on with me. I go, dude, I'll change your voice. I'll block off your face or whatever, but people need to hear this. They need to know this. And so I'm still working on them. Hopefully
I let people know, listen, and this sounds a little bit of sci-fi, but I am, an honorably discharged naval service member, so 2 tours 3 operations. And I was privy to a lot of weaponry you still haven't seen to this day. And I can talk about now, one of the things that I had seen was being on one of the small boys. And we were told when we were in what's called the blue tile area, where it's only for officers or designated personnel, people who are operational. I was operational. And so we were told by the security of the ship, when we walked past one of the rooms, it was basically where there's it's not really a battle room. It's more of just a room where there's a lot of preparation. They know what's going on. And we were told, don't look to the left, even though we know we're going to look to the left, right? They knew we were going to see what we were going to see. And so they said, but you didn't see it. You're just going to pass through and move on. So we open it. The door opens up. You go in. Of course, we're in there, and it's a war room. And sure enough, I look at this table, which looks like a flat screen TV, but it's laying down like a table, and there are these little black lights all the way around it. And it's a dark room, but I saw what looked like projecting 3-dimensional rotation of, like a CAD, like architectural, with a lot of architects use. It's called CAD, but it was in 3-dimensional, projecting above the television screen. And no one's seen it. It's kind of like the Tony Stark, where he would put it in the air and he's moving it around, but it was very like that. It was very similar to that, but it protruded about 3 to 4 inches up. And of course I was blown away by that. That was over 25 years ago. Now you can only imagine what we have today. And I had seen some of the first lasers on, and of course they were masked and they were at that, but you could not, the beam coming out, you could feel the vibration. And we were looking at and the reason why I know this is because I was also a rescue swimmer. So we had pilots that would, some pilots would eject on purpose because it was a demo. We needed to see a plane. Some of it was remote, but in case there was something that had happened, we would go in and we would rescue the person, or we just had to make sure that, any parts that came down wasn't going to affect, floating in the area that could affect, passerbyers if we were in maybe, say, international waters or training waters that we were approved. And we would just see these jets get blown out. Nothing. You didn't see it. They just literally fell out of the sky and would crumble, ignite, and just hit the water. So when people talk about these beams or these lasers protruding from the sky or from some bizarre angle, that technology does exist. It's not sci-fi. It does exist.
I've seen videos of it, but then again, how much can you trust that now with AI and everything else?
I completely agree with you 100%. You're spot on. But to those who are screaming truth, I have to give credence where credence is due. Does the technology exist? And the answer is yes. So now it begs the question, what are we seeing? Is it truth? Is it a lie? Is it AI? Is it over enhanced? But this actually serves the favor to the left, those who want to cause doubt, and they want those of us who are seeking the truth, to argue amongst ourselves while we are distracted with that. And we really need to get our act together, because a lot of these people who are in our government, especially here in California, do not serve at the pleasure of the people. They are serving handlers. Handlers are from other countries, communist regimes, people who are filling their pockets from.
Which is why I brought up the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party.
Yes.
That's why I brought that up in particular. You're running for governor of the state of California in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you win. I want you to win. We've got several
Thank
good
you.
people who are stepping up now and throwing their hat in the ring. And I'm like, at this point, a Doberman Pinscher would be a better choice than anything on the left. But we have very powerful forces, very wicked and evil forces. Of course, the devil himself, but they are doing their father's work just as quickly as possible, for his time is short. And their father is the father of lies. And I'm talking about Communist Party and many on the left who think, well, I'm doing it because I really care. No, you're doing it because you've turned your backs on God. You don't read his word. You have no idea. And you're being led down a primrose path of this is going to be all incense and peppermints. We're going to have our little Star Trek utopia. Just follow me.
Yes.
They're spacious and broad is the path to destruction. But so many people now are following it because they don't read the word and they have turned their backs on God. So, Daniel, you come out and talk more as a political candidate about the Lord and returning back to God in a way that I think scares many in the Republican Party, and they don't want that because they think that makes you unelectable. What's your answer to that?
I disagree with that. I think more people are starting to come out, not just myself, but they're starting to see the benefit behind the fact that we have been and removed ourselves away so much from God that they're seeing that what's being filled in, that void, is being filled in with evil. It's being filled in with vile and twisted natures. And this is why I put on my book, it's corrupting nature's God, right? Where does that come from? It comes from the Declaration of Independence, that we are of nature and of nature's God, an equal and separate station, that we have been endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And a lot of people don't understand that the right to life falls under the laws of nature and of nature's God. And when you remove that element, you remove God's law. When you remove God's law, which we fall under is common law, then you are implementing and going to turn our republic into a democracy. So let me educate your audience in a sense. Is we live in a constitutional republic. We do not live in a democratic society or a democracy. We're not a representative democracy. In fact, it was Hamilton in 1777 who said and asked the question, when you look at the Federalist Papers, you will see that he asked the questions, do we garner into a representative democracy? Question mark. It wasn't that that's what we're going to be. It wasn't until 10 years later when you read the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers, they were trying to figure out what government we were going to be. Why? Because in 1776, we just won our independence. And in that process, our forefathers, 56 of them, 55 of them all went to seminary school. You can look at their writings and their memoirs, and you will see that they say that we are now forming, or we are instituting, a republic form of government. And that they, so much so they put it in our Constitution under Article 4, Section 4, that all states shall ensure a republic form of government, because they wanted to ensure that the people, their God-given endowments in a constitutional republic, comes first. The needs of the government come last, and you never run the state like a business. When you live in a democracy, its government needs comes first. God-given endowments come last. They remove God and they run the state like a business, and treating you and robbing you with taxation without representation, which is exactly what we're enduring right now in California. That is the difference.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I fully agree with you. And I pray that it's true, because I want you and people like you to be stepping up and running for political office, because until good people run for office, nothing's going to change. It's only going to get worse.
No,
But
and
my
listen,
own
I've been at this for 5 years. So when people say, does Daniel have name recognition? There's almost not a county that I haven't been to that has not heard of me. So, and a lot of people say, but is he electable? Last time I checked, if my name is on the ballot, I am therefore electable. It is such a ludicrous
Right.
argument. And when people say, well, Daniel just wants to arrest everybody. No, I don't want to arrest everybody. I want to investigate everybody who has engaged in egregious legislation, which is illegal, violated their oath of office, and then hold them accountable in a court of record under the 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendment under trial. And when we do that, we are going to see how fast all of these unfortunate, deviant people run for the hills. They're not going to want somebody like this, and that's okay. I'm okay with being Daniel in the lion's den. I'm fine with going against the naysayers and the critics. I've had my threats. I've had my fair share of, people saying and going against me. It's going to be different this time. But really going to come to people in realizing, put somebody in office who has no political mogul, lobbyist, career politician, or
Right.
beneficiary that is going to ask for their back to be scratched sometime down the line.
Right.
No, I owe the God, my family, and then the people. And the people are to be protected under the Constitution, because it keeps government at all times. And this is why I tell people we have one job, and that is to secure the right of the people. Governments are instituted among men to secure the rights. That's it. It's really that simple. I don't need to be a lawyer. Lawyers don't have, they don't have a reasoning to protect the Constitution. They're bar members. They serve at the British Accredited Registry, not
That's right.
we the people.
That's right. I hope you do well. We need you and people like you desperately in the state of California, or frankly, like all my friends who have gotten out. I'm actually now thinking along those lines myself. And I never thought I'd say that. I'm too stubborn. I'm a native Californian, born and raised. I love my state, and I take on bullies. And bullies push me, and I will push back twice as hard. But when I'm seeing bullies in my own Republican Party who are never interested in hearing from anybody like you, I start thinking, this is too big for me. How can I fight back against that when my own people who are supposed to be on my side are against me? And then I realize my God is bigger. My God is the biggest. And if it can be rescued and turned around, and it is his will, and we can pray for it to be his will. I ultimately want his will to be done. But the Lord, but we've got to make that effort.
Yes.
It's like the analogy I love to use about the big ship, but the little rudder. And the big ship's got the power and the thrust, but without that little rudder.
And that is the most important thing is
God is that little rudder.
Get where you're coming from. I do hear it, and I feel it too. I won't lie. I feel the strain of the egregious legislation pressing a pound and removing parental rights. I see the ignorance continuing to grow in the rhetoric that a lot of the CRAs and GOPs are stuck on past, trying to box. They refuse to let go of the old, and they want to ensure that what they're familiar with stays in play, even though it hasn't served them well. It's the whole reasoning why we're here in the first place. And so I understand the implication when taxes are going up, jobs are decreasing. We are at an impasse where it's how far do we keep going with this fight? Do we head to better grounds and reset ourselves for a greater battle, or do we just go all in? And, a fight to the finish. And, I'm of the mindset of for me, it's a fight to the finish. That's why I haven't stopped. And it's weighed on my family. It's taken me away from my children, especially my daughter, who's been in this battle for leukemia, and all because the government didn't want to clean up the mess. They didn't want to clean up the radiation. In fact, we learned that every kid, that's if you're a healthy person, you're a lost profit for the medical, industrial complex. And my daughter was just one of those people who, unfortunately, the doctors make more money off of chemotherapy. And I looked into the research and I wondered, why didn't the government want to clean this up? Well, it's been 65 years and they still have not done anything about it except give lip service. What can not do that to take care of their people, clean the water, remove the sustenance? Who cares how much? But they don't want to do that because there's profit to be made off of the illness of others, including children and the next generation of unhealthy people. We live in a very society who don't want to do anything. This is a fight to the finish.
Right on, brother. Daniel Mercury, fantastic. And buy his book. You can help support his campaign that way. But how else can we get involved?
I really encourage people to, very simple. We're going to be, I'm going to be fundraising very soon. But one of the things that they can do right now is if you have 500 people that follow you, tag every single one of them with one of my posts. If you have multiple social media platforms, tag every single one of them with one of my videos, with something that I put up or I said, or screen grab, or take out a small section and tag every single one of them, all of them, multiple times. That costs absolutely nothing.
How about starting with this show? Because that'll be helping me too.
There, exactly. The other thing too that I tell people is get educated. If you're not sure where to start, then buy my book. If you can't buy it, send me a message. We'll send you a free copy. It's coming out of my pocket, so it has nothing to do with the money.
That is nice, but I'd rather somebody. It can't cost that much. It's paperback, right?
It's paperback. I think it's like $21. But my point is those are the top two things that you can do right now. Is if you believe in what I believe in, you support what I support. You've gone on my website. You understand. It takes you less than a minute to tag everybody and send that, or an email. Very simple, cost effective. Instead, here's the other thing too, and I'm not trying to digress, but here's one of the key things is, we're looking for candidates to raise millions of dollars. But why aren't we looking for candidates that can actually campaign on the least amount of money, in the sense that we can show you we can budget, I can budget, and yet we're putting people in who have millions of dollars. Yep. Then what do they end up doing with that money? They only spend a quarter of it. They take the remaining money and they run it through a nonprofit and they pay themselves, and they become a perennial candidate who simply just lives off of fundraising. And we fall for it every time. This is
A
notorious for
classic
all of these counties.
example up here in the San Francisco Bay Area where I am, John Garamendi. John Garamendi got reelected again to Congress. John Garamendi, who's done next to nothing throughout his entire political career except live off of our tax dollars. John Garamendi is 79 years old, and just last year, was diagnosed with a form of blood cancer. Running against Rudy Rosselli, who's a staunch conservative Army veteran, great guy, would have been an excellent congressman for the East Bay of San Francisco. But no, they reelected John Garamendi, 79 years old, while they're complaining about Trump being too old, but not saying anything about Biden being too old. Their hypocrisy is stunning.
It's sickening. It's so
And they
sickening.
reelected him again, even though he does nothing except he's a reliable vote for the left every time.
Here's something I want to tell your audience too. Go on my website and look on there, and you'll see that I talk about integrity election. And on there, I break down a little bit of things that we can do. It's not in my book; it's on my website. I'm updating it because I'm still doing it. Is one of the things that we don't, and who we don't ability to, is the county clerk registrar's office. They are the ones who deal with the contracts. Elected. Most of them here in California, I think 70% of them are voted in by the people. We can vote them out. Right. Also have contracts that they assign companies, which there's only 5 that we approved here in the state of California, Dominion, of course, being one of them, and we don't hold them true to the contract. And number 2, here's the other thing. We do not hold our county clerk register accountable for what will they do when a complaint comes through that a vote is not counted or a candidate's name is not on the machine. Because I'll tell you right now, during the 2021 recall and the 2022, myself and other gubernatorial candidates on the conservative side, our names were not on the machines. When we got phone after phone call from multiple who were our supporters, and even the other candidates were calling each other's we were calling each other. I talked to, Diego Martinez, Sarah Stevens, Jenny Ray. I was talking to a lot of these candidates, sending them texts and messages, Leo Zaki, and we were asking, hey, was your name on every single city on the machines, or did anybody contact you saying they couldn't find your name? And many of them said yes. Many of them were not on there. What are our county clerks going to do to ensure that that does not happen? Number 2, they have to publicize what they're going to do, because then they're held accountable to what they put out to the public, and can be they can be sued for that violation, because, well, that's what they were going to do. It's within their vested authorities. So we have to make sure now that we have a strategy to ensure that those machines are going to be, scrutinized to the T. Right. And we can't bank on, and I'm hoping to God and I'm praying to God that Trump is going to, hopefully Congress will put in a bill that says no more machines, period.
I hope so too.
State hand counting. But what's our strategy? It's do caravans. We need to ensure that those people are held accountable. Go onto my website. It might spark some ideas, and look under where it says integrity election, and read about what I put, I think it was like 2 years ago. It's still valid to this day. Look at it.
What is your website?
It's danielforcalgovernor.com. So that's DANIEL for FOR Cal CL governor.com.
Because down below there you wrote the number 4. So
yeah, just to kind of condense the.
Okay, so it's Daniel DANIEL FOUR CAL governor. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
that's
it.
Okay,
DanielforCalGovernor.com.
Sweet. All right, my friend. I'm so glad I met you, and it's been 2 or 3 years now. You're an extraordinary person. You really are. And keep fighting the good fight, and pray for him. Pray for him and people like him, that the Lord will lift up more of these kind of strong believers. who actually are saying, no, I'm going to let my light shine. I'm not going to hide it away under a basket because I want to make sure everybody likes me. I'm not interested in that anymore. Thank you, Daniel. Talk to you later, my friend.
Thank you, Charlie. God bless you. Will
You
do.
too. He does. He has. He will. And thank you for helping this show too. He mentioned about the sharing. That has such a dramatic impact on the algorithms, and he understands all that kind of stuff. But all I know is I can ask you to please share my Rumble page, rumble.com/DoNotTalk. And you go there, you follow the channel, that helps. You click like on a show, that helps. You comment, that helps. It all helps. But the biggest thing is sharing. Man, the show with Daniel Mercury, I'm going to share this. I want other people to hear what this guy has to say. Share it on your social media. Don't be scared. Come on, step up. So it's rumble.com/DoNotTalk. And to financially help me, and I could use it right now, seriously, Venmo.com/DoNotTalk. That's that little QR code thing right there. There it is, QR code. And that'll take you right to Venmo.com/DoNotTalk. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God.